Hi, all. I welcome you to the Building Culture podcast where I invite incredibly smart people who build things. Whether they be engineers, entrepreneurs, artists, programmers, or hobbyists, it does not matter. If you're someone who loves to build stuff, I'll find you and podcast you. And in today's episode, we have a very special guest. He's an entrepreneur in his own right. He's currently working on commercializing an idea that deals with parcel lockers. More about it in the conversation. He has written a book called Job Disruption that talks about the impact of AI and digitalization on the future job market. He has worked as an application engineer for 11 years. I know him from Toastmasters, which is a public speaking community. I know him to be someone who is incredibly creative and uh, well known for his really entertaining, humorous, and out of the box speech ideas that he delivers time and again at Toastmasters. Also, he's someone who has probably given the most number of speeches and is also known for his consistency in delivering new ideas on a regular basis. So, without any further ado, let's welcome Werner Ulbts.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, since there's a lot of things that you have done and there are a lot of different aspects of you that I don't really know about, so my very first question would be to ask you about your educational background. Let's start with the education. What are the bachelor's and master's degree that you did, how you started, and all those things?
I would love to talk about it. So for me, when you did your introduction, you said that you have incredible smart people on your podcast. I think I would be the exception because I don't see myself incredible smart. And let me start at the beginning. When I went to school, I was really bad at school, so I had not good grades. And when you compare it with the American system, I didn't even get a high school degree. So I finished my school, and then I did something what we call here in Germany an apprenticeship as an electronic technical person, and I worked basically on that for 3 years. And then I joined the German military. And there I basically changed my complete work. Meaning, normally I should work as electronic technician, but this changed while I was in the German Air Force because every electronic person basically also needs to learn IT stuff and stuff like that. So we had courses and in order to get new skills basically. And during that time, there was one course about programming. And I already taught programming myself when I was 16. So basically, I knew the subject. But during that time, there were not many programmers in the German military. So they asked the tutor, so the person which holds the course, if there were people who are good doing that course in order to change basically the work, what they're doing right now. And so I got asked if I want to change and become a programmer in the German Air Force. And I said yes. And then I needed to do a test basically in order to prove that I can do it. And I succeeded. And from that time on, basically, I got more courses and then I worked as a programmer. But I still didn't have any high school degree or college degree or something like that. So, but I think for most people in Germany, college degrees are really, really important. So when you apply for a job, then they always will take a look, what is your college degree? Do you have a bachelor? Do you have a master's? And I didn't have that. So I was thinking about how can I change that basically. And what I did is I looked of possibilities in order to get my high school degree in order to go to college. And for that, I looked for different possibilities. And there was a possibility when you work in a job and you passing a test, basically. And when you pass that test, you're getting your high school degree, and then you can go to college, university, and stuff like that. And so I did that, and I passed it, and then I did my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, and from that perspective, this is very unique because many people are having the normal straight route that they're doing high school, then college, and stuff like that. And for me, it's a different journey, but I think it's a good journey because I learned a lot of different things on the way. Because when I went to school, I was bad. I didn't really focus on the subjects because there were a lot of things I'm basically not interested in it. For
Yeah.
example, languages and stuff like that.
Okay, so the path that you followed was not the conventional path of, going from high school, then bachelor's, but master's, but then you discovered your interest and love towards programming, and then you decided to pursue it further. So your bachelor's and master's were also in computer science, or
Yes, as a bachelor degree is in computer science, my master's degree is in economy and computer science.
economy and computer science?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's also quite a unique combination. So what exactly do you mean by economy and computer science?
So when you always can go in different subjects, and economy is basically that you also focus on the financial aspect of a company, that you know about how company is structured, so all the financial stuff around it. So everything what is
Okay.
important for operating the company, and also the computer science stuff. So it's basically a combination.
Mhm. Yeah, that's interesting because right now the things that you're doing are actually involving both of these things. So you do stuff that deals with computer science and also you're into entrepreneurship. So I think your degree probably have had an impact on you, and you got quite a few things on your journey so that you can, uh, implement those things in your personal projects and ideas.
My personal opinion is different. I think the majority of the things you learn in university or you learning for subject you don't really use in real life.
Yeah.
So it's basically you're getting a tool set which you can use in order to solve problems, but it's not really helping. So I think 90% of what you learn there, you won't probably use in the real world.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with this mindset because the education system is more oriented towards the theoretical aspect of it, and for the practical side of it, people have to do their own things, do personal projects, or participate in activities, or do side jobs to learn more skills.
And I think you learn definitely way more when you have a problem and you want to solve that problem. It's way easier to basically dive into a new subject instead of okay, I have now to write an essay about it, or I need to write an exam about it. That's not the
Yeah.
same motivation as when you have a practical problem and you want to solve that.
Yeah, yeah. So grades aren't the motivation. The motivation is to solve a problem and enjoying the process along with it. So,
That should be the in the real world the motivation. But like I said before, many people in Germany, especially in Germany, value degrees very high. Meaning, if you
yeah,
want to apply for a certain position, then there's a minimum requirement that you have a bachelor or master's degree. And also, when people talk to each other, then it's always important if a person has a high school degree, bachelor degree, master degree, or a doctor or professor. So the titles really matter in society.
Yeah. So from a societal point of view, that's important, but for genuine learning, probably that's not the best approach, is what you want to say.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So you talk about that. You talked about your interest in programming and how you developed it at an early stage, and then you pursued it at a later stage. By doing your bachelor's there and also doing other activities on site. So, what was it about programming that fascinated you and pulled you towards it? And at what point did you decide that I should pursue this thing as a career and not something else?
So I don't know if there was really a point in history where I said, no, that's really interesting. So basically, I saw the potential. So I saw when you program a software, you can do this and that. So what I did basically, I went on eBay, bought some books, and basically taught it to myself. And
Oh,
then I always look for small little projects for what I can do, and basically then I implement it, and that's basically also what I do to today. So looking for a way to improve a certain situation with software, and that's basically my main motivation. And the career path, it was basically um, um, kind of luck that basically the German military was looking at that point for programmers. If not,
yeah.
I would have worked more in the electronic side on it. But I think in my free time, I would always have to would always put time and effort in learning to program, learning new languages. So I wouldn't think that would have made a difference if the German military wouldn't say, okay, you can be a programmer. I would pursue it either way.
So you talk about self-teaching yourself programming. So
Yes.
you didn't have any formal education beforehand in programming. You put yourself, you bought the books from eBay and you uh, collected different sources and you tried to learn the thing yourself. And then after that, you had a formal education as well. So and you talk about how self-education, self-teaching a skill is also what you do till date. So, what is the process of teaching yourself like? So, do you download a book and you follow it step by step, or you give yourself a task and then look at the internet or look through the books and other sources? And what is the process of learning that you have adopted for programming in general?
For programming, I would say that's always task specific, meaning when I have a task which I want to accomplish, and this task has certain problems or certain challenges, then I'm looking always what is the best way in order to solve this challenge. And then I look through the whole internet in order to find much much more information so that I can pinpoint exactly in which direction I need to go. And then I will buy course materials, which are mostly general, but then I will only will look in the specifics in order to solve the specific
Okay.
problem for that task. Don't
So,
go from the beginning to the end. I rarely do that. It's
yeah,
very
yeah,
rare
yeah.
that I do that.
So you just pick the important things that are valuable in your project and then don't go through the whole book or the whole,
Yes.
resource essentially. Yeah, that's an interesting way. So, but how do you then pick up a problem? How do you come up with the ideas, for example, for solving different type of problems? For example, do they come from your personal need? For example, you recognize a problem when you're using a computer, you find a problem uh, operating it, or in your daily life, or is it like somebody told you that I'm having this problem and I would really want to have a solution for this, and then you kind of work it, or what is your way of ideating the problems, or the deciding which project to work on?
So it's kind of internal motivation. So that when I have a need and I want to basically solve that, but also a lot of external motivation. Meaning when I have a client and the client said, "Hey, I need a solution for this problem. Do you have any idea how to solve that?" Then it's basically external motivation in order to find a solution to the problem.
Okay. So you mentioned clients. Are you also working as a freelance?
Exactly, yeah. So
Okay.
I basically working as a freelancer for helping problems which are basically unique. What I don't do is basically setting up a online shop and doing normal website stuff. So for me, it's really important that it's a unique challenge which there's not out of the box solution to it. And for
Okay.
that, I'm really good. I'm really good to combining multiple different areas and put it together because I can also develop own hardware and so I can. I have a lot of different tools which I can use, and this is something I really like. So finding solutions for unique problems.
Okay. So you specifically choose those problems that are actually difficult to solve, or new problems that would be interesting for you to solve. And so you also mentioned that you work not just on software, but you develop your own hardware yourself as well. So
Yeah.
so you do all of these things yourself, right? And
Yes.
all of these things, for example, working on electronic hardware and all those things, these are the things that you taught yourself, right?
Um, Here's the thing: with taught yourself that it's the difference between formal education, being going to school, and a person is learning. It's teaching you how to do it. And in my case, it's basically self-taught with books, reading manuals, and also network, meaning I know other people who are developing hardware, and then there's always basically interaction and say, hey, could do improve that, and when you use this or when you use
Hmm.
that, then it may work better. And so when you have a lot of people in your network which are also basically developing electronics, then you'll also learn a lot from them.
Okay, okay. So it's also about the type of people that you interact with on a daily
Absolutely,
basis.
yes.
Yeah.
So,
So,
I had an apprenticeship in electronics, but really the possibility to build own hardware in order to do that. This is something I wouldn't have been able to do a few years ago. So, but now it's for me not a big problem because I did it often.
okay. Yeah. Over the years of working with different kinds of problems, now you have developed a particular skill set where you can deal with a variety of challenges
Exactly.
in a project, right? So now I think you have worked on a variety of different projects, and for example, for even a single project you work on different aspects of it, and most of the time alone. But what is that one project that you have worked on that you have enjoyed the most so far, or maybe there are multiple of such projects?
I think every project has stuff which is really nice, where you learn something new, which is really challenging, and when you solve a problem, it's really nice. But also you have on each problem on each project, you have problems which you don't like to work on, and I think there's no particular project where you have all sunshine and rainbows. So it's
Yeah.
always basically positive and negative aspects to it.
Yeah. So also, I mean, you didn't pick one particular project because you think that, you think that the different kinds of projects that you worked on, all of them are different, and it wouldn't be fair to pick one of the project because every project is unique, right?
Yes. I think
Yeah,
also every project you do, every problem you solve brings you further in solving another problem what
yeah.
you for later. So yes.
Okay, and so how do you think you have evolved uh, as a self-taught engineer or programmer or entrepreneur over the years? What are the skill sets that you have gained? What was your perspective, for example, 10 years before, and how do you think you have evolved and grown as a person over the last 10 years?
So when I look back, then 10 years ago, then I could um, provide a program, knew a little bit about Unix systems like Ubuntu or something like that. So, but now I basically can build hardware, can build a way bigger variety of different softwares, know much more details into it, and it's a normal process. That meaning that in the beginning it's always hard, it's overwhelming, and then over time it's getting better. So for me, my life goal is basically always to learn new things and always try also things a different way. So I think it's really, really bad when you focus on doing one thing particularly well and only doing it a certain way. And I think in the new age, this is not the right way to go.
So the kind of approach that you adopt, whether you're working or learning, is a very creative approach and not a totally analytical approach. Of course, a lot of analysis and following a sequence of steps would also go on. That's inevitable. But the way that you deal with things is to uh, give your original thought to it, so you come up with your own ideas, your unique ways of solving it. So my question to you is, how do you come up with your ideas? Do you have a specific plan, a process of generating ideas? Is there a habit that you have developed where you write down ideas, or is it the content that you are consuming on a daily basis? What is your idea generation process? And yeah, what is your creative process, if I can put it in different words?
So I don't really have a creative process. I'm really curious, meaning I like to watch new YouTube tutorials about new stuff when there's a new programming language, when there's a new framework. I like to take a look into it. And also for me, it's basically, it's never fixed, meaning I got a patent on a lock technology, but and which I now use for parcel lockers. But the beginning was totally different. So when I started with working on technology, the problem was in a complete different direction. So the problem I tried to solve during that time was that I'm somebody, when I have sweets at home, I always try to eat them immediately. So, and I saw an American television show which is called Shark Tank. I saw a
Yeah.
product which basically locks sweets or other things away, meaning you put everything in one container and then you lock it and you can't access it for, I don't know, 5 hours, 10 hours, whatever time you like to lock it away. And I think that's a great idea because we all need to make choices every day. So when there's a chocolate right next to you, then you need to decide, do I eat it or not? And so the temptation is always there. But when it's locked, then the decision is away. You don't need to think about it because you can't lock it. And I thought that's a really good idea, but I think the concept is wrong because when you put everything in one box, then this is not helping you to improve in this situation. It would be much better when you have, I don't know, 30 little containers where you can basically eat every day something and make a regular plan and say, okay, when I
Ah,
achieve the challenge, then I will get that, so that it's more programmable and more intelligent. And so I was thinking about how can you create a rule-based system which is also scalable, because hardware costs are a big issue. And so I was thinking about how to create a lock system which is scalable and where you can put digital rules in. And so I made a few sketches, to try a few things out, and then I came up with the idea, and then I went to the patent lawyer and discussed this with them, and then I filed the patent, and I got the patent for this
okay.
lock technology. And when I talk to people, then many people said, okay, sweets, I know the problem. When I have it at home, I also always eat it. And I really like to have something like that. But there was also a big number of people who said, I don't really need that. So it's
Yeah.
not something for me. And I think when you have an idea or when you work on a product, it's always really important to talk to people what do other people think about it? It's just me, which is really exciting about it, or are there other people? And so there was basically a mix. So 50% hugely in favor, 50% no, I don't need it. I think it's silly.
Hmm, hmm.
So and so I always look for different ways. How can you use technology like that? And what I came up with is using it as a parcel locker. For you who don't know what a parcel locker is, it's basically a big container where you can deliver your mail to. And then you get a notification on your phone, and then you can pick up the mail from this huge container, so
Okay.
that you don't need to be at home in order to receive your mail. You can basically send it to this big container, and when it's there, then you get a notification. You pick it up, and you don't have the problem that your neighbor needs to take it or something like that. And I noticed that I can use this technology for this kind of locker system, and it reduces the cost by 90%. So, and when I pitched that idea to different people, almost everybody thinks it's a great idea, and everybody sees the need. So it's really
Yeah.
important also to adapt to different things, not only to be stubborn on one idea and say, I want to do it. You also need to look how the market is, and that's what I basically work on right now, the
So
majority of the time.
yeah, so the basic point that you are putting is that the idea for parcel lockers actually started off with a totally different idea, and
Absolutely,
and and it originated from another idea that was displayed in a TV show, essentially.
exactly, yes.
And then you try to understand the need, like is it something that actually people need? And for the suite, for locking the suite or the programmable box for the suites, probably there were not a lot of customers. I wouldn't personally buy that either. So, and then you try to explore the different possibilities of this kind of technology or idea that you were thinking about, and then you realize that okay, such a locking system could be used for a parcel locker, or a system like a pack station for
Yeah,
yeah, a similar system like the DHL pack station, essentially.
absolutely.
So you have a patent already, so you can also discuss in more detail about this particular concept, right?
Yes, absolutely. And but what I this is also something what you need to learn over time. Now I have a patent, but the patent really doesn't mean anything. Yes, I can talk to other people, but when another company like, I don't know, DHL would say, "Hey, we will use the technology, even you have a patent, but we don't care. We will use something like that." then
Okay.
I wouldn't have the financial money to fight them because patent wars are extremely expensive. So what I basically notice now, yes, it's great to have a patent and it's great for talking to people because it's basically a sign and say, okay, there is a new innovation. When you have a patent, there must be a new innovation, but it doesn't really mean that nobody else can copy it, because when somebody else does it, you need also to have some money to fight it. And
Ah,
this is for small company, or when you do something alone with your own financial money, there's no way that you can do it. And that's also the reason why I've only a German patent, because I didn't go to other countries, because you need to file the patent in each other country, and it costs a lot of money. And
oh, okay.
so we are talking about way over 100,000 euros to do it in the really important key areas like United States, all countries in Europe. So it's really, really important. And at the end, you need still more money when to fight it, basically, when somebody else is using it. So
Ah,
but at the end, it's still good as a sign, meaning that you can prove there is an innovation, there is something
yeah.
new, because otherwise you wouldn't have granted the patent.
So it's basically more important in just showing other people that this is your original idea that you implemented. It's an innovation, but at the same time, if anybody else is using it, then it's really difficult to claim to fight back because of the lot of, because of the monetary involvement. So much money is
Yeah.
involved. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it's for a small company, they cannot fight a patent war against a big giant because they don't have the money. Maybe there are lawyers which say, okay, I do it pro bono, meaning that when we win, you pay me uh, X amount of the settling
Hmm.
amount, but basically from the negotiation, when you win, what's basically that the lawyer gets amount of money on win condition. And when they lose, then basically the lawyers don't charge anything. But also for that, you need to find a lawyer which is willing to do that, and it needs also to be a good lawyer. And so
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
really difficult. One really other important aspect is when a big company is claiming that they did the innovation, and you are not allowed to do that. When you have a patent, it's really easy to defend and say, hey, I'm using my own
yeah.
technology. I have a patent on that here in Germany. When I do it in the United States, then it's okay for me because I invented it. So it's very easy to defend when somebody else is attacking you when you have a patent. But really go against other big companies, it's really, really expensive.
Yeah. So at the very least, it protects your idea, but
Yes.
then it's difficult to compete with the other people. So, but how is your particular parcel lock idea different or an add-on or unique to the existing DHL packet stations or packet stations by other companies even?
So, and not because when I go now into details, I think hard for the audience to
Yeah.
follow. So I try to make it as simple as possible. So what my main difference is that I use very little technology in the log, which also don't need a huge amount of energy. And because this is uses very little technology and and only a little amount of energy, it's very cheap to basically put every lock inside every box to speak to open it,
Hmm.
and because that's way cheaper than the solution which is in place now. And my intelligence is the key. So the key is way more intelligent and way more different from a normal key, because a normal key is only basically very small intelligence in it, and the main technology is in the lock. and I reverse it somehow. That means that my main technology part is in the key and very little in the lock. So
Okay.
that's a huge difference. So it's basically an inverse lock system, how it's on the market right now.
Okay. So it's fundamentally different to the conventional packet stations
Yes, fundamental.
and smarter in a way as well.
So it is a smart system, meaning you can put all the rules in it to open it only at a specific point of time, and only when a person puts in a PIN or when a person authenticates himself with an RFID card or something like that, you can put all the rules in it. So it's smart by design, but like every other system, also when you're doing in a certain way, there's advantages and disadvantages. So I have a huge advantage in price point, but there is a little disadvantages in how the person needs to handle it. In my case, the person needs to do one additional step. Why in the normal mail parcel locker, the box opening by himself, it jumps open. And here the person needs to open it with their hand. That's the difference, which makes it, on the other hand, much cheaper.
Okay, so you came up with a product that is in a way better than the existing parcel lockers. So during your journey, so you started with a different idea and then you kind of diverged towards an actual need. So what was the thing that you learned during the process? uh, During this entire process from starting with an idea to actually filing a patent, what was the thing that you learned, and what was the most difficult aspect of it is probably another way to put it.
So I think there's always a lot of small little challenges which you need to solve on the way. So the meaning you're starting with an idea, and then you say, okay, that should be easy. But
Yes.
during the time, you say, oh shit, this is something I didn't thought about. How can I solve that? Or how can I? And then you need to find a solution for the small problems. And it's there's a misconception. So many people say, okay, when you have a great idea, then it's easy to build something and then you sell it to somebody else. It's not easy, and the majority of companies are failing. So we have a fail rate of over 90% of the startups, which are basically trying to innovate something, coming up with a new product, but 90% of them will fail or are failing right now.
Mhm, mhm. So what is your what do you think is the reason why 90% of the startups actually do not succeed, and
Um,
very few actually make it, like probably
market
even more than 90% fail?
market acceptance, meaning that you need to have customers, you need to have people who said, I'm willing to put money on the table to buy it. I think many people say, hey, that's a great idea, but at the end, the question is, are people are willing to pay for it? And people say, yeah, probably, but at the end, when the product is available, do people really put their money
Yeah,
and
yeah.
do it? So, and I think that's the biggest problem. So many problems which are solved on paper sounds really nice, but at the end there's nobody which is willing to pay for it.
Yeah. So it essentially is, I mean, if people are willing to buy it, only then you have a possibility of a profitable business in the future. Otherwise, no matter how grand your idea is, it wouldn't matter, because then you cannot establish a business, because a business requires customers, essentially. So also, could you walk us through a process of building a startup from an idea? What are the steps that are involved? Of course, it's not a linear process. You kind of also come up with challenges that you didn't expect in the beginning. But is there a step by step process that one can use for planning in the initial stages, which might also change later? So, how do you build a startup?
So would recommend is to basically following the business model canvas. Did you hear about that? Do you
Yeah,
know what it is?
yeah.
So
So,
it's basically a short spreadsheet which are helping you to focus on certain aspects, like what is your unique selling proposition. So what makes your product unique, or who is your ideal customer, and stuff like that. And this is really helping you. And the next step is go and test it with customers, and we're not basically developing it over many years, and then at the end nobody is there who wants to buy it. So it's really important to have the process and talk to people, and then adapting and change things. Like I did with my idea for the lock system. So at the end, you always need to decide how big are the chances of succeeding, because it costs a lot of money. When you
yeah.
have a software company, there's no problem. You rent a server for a few bucks, then you write the software. It's only your time. But when you build hardware, it's really expensive. So you need to build basically tools in order to produce cases for it. So injection molding forms, which are cost more than 10,000 euros only the forms to produce
Oh,
basically stuff. And then you need to have certifications, meaning that there's a different company which is checking, are you allowed to put it on the European market? And this costs a lot of money, and you should be 100% sure that there will be a market for it, because when you invest a lot of money and at the end nobody wants to have it, then you are probably broke or you have a lot of debt. And that's something everybody should focus on. So I think business model canvas and talking to people about your idea. When you basically work your product with a business model canvas, then go to people and say, hey, is this something you want to have? Then that's a good chance that you are succeeding.
so the first step is basically to get an overall picture of the idea, seeing the requirements, who would be the potential customers, the stakeholders involved, how would the product be actually visually, or the other aspects of the products. And then the first step is not to go directly into building it, but then actually testing the market first. So how was the uh, process of testing the market for your idea like? So did you prepare just CAD models and animations or visualizations and showed it to people? And who are the people you showed it to? And or did you build a small prototype to actually give it to people or potential customers and get their outlook? How do you simplify this process of testing the market before you actually build a product? It could be a challenge in itself, right?
Absolutely. So for me, it's basically in the beginning, I did basically design drafts, meaning I used the head software and made 3D models and asked many people. And during that time, I already noticed for the suites that this probably will be hard to implement on the market. So I worked
Yeah.
on that and tried different aspects, tried to improve it, and also tried to find solutions to problems. And then I noticed, okay, this is not probably not going somewhere. So what I also did, I put it aside. Then I focused more on the master degree, and focused more on writing a book. And later on, I took it again and say, hey, how can I change it and how can I basically do that? And for parcel lockers, for example, it's really something which is which has a huge need. Everybody gets a lot of mail at home, and many people say, "Hey, I want to have something like that at home, so that I don't need to be at home and still can get my mail." But the problem is there. What I noticed when I spoke during to people which basically have big multi-flat homes, that there is not enough space to basically set up a station like that, because the entrance is most of the time very small, and there is not a lot of space in order to set up such a station. And this is something which is really important to find out in the beginning, because when you create something and then say, hey, but we don't have space in order to build something, then
Yeah.
this is not the ideal customer for me. So what I'm basically, that's also what I changed. So I changed the target group now to different companies like small little stores where you can give a benefit for them, meaning people can buy online and select, you can pick it up at the store, and then they basically get a notification on your smartphone, so they can pick it up in the store at a basically a station. And this is way better, because this helps to solve a problem for also little store owners, because little store owners have a problem that more people buying in the internet, and they need to have new concepts, and they don't have also the manpower to basically handle everything. But when you have a station there, it's a benefit for them. So, and that's what I meant with, you need to go to many different people and talk to them. You are not, it's really bad to have an idea and say, hey, I just keep it for myself, because when I tell it to somebody else, then they will steal it, and then I don't have anything anymore. And I think this is not the case. It helps you to improve your product, and you learn a lot of things.
Yeah. So
And
interesting.
but also you are need to willing to change your product, meaning that when people have a different opinion and say, hey, I want to have it this way, then you need to be flexible enough to that.
So this idea of actually keeping your unique idea to yourself because it's so special and somebody will steal it is really faulty and would actually prevent you from make commercializing it essentially. And you
Absolutely,
get
yeah.
more when you talk to people, when you listen to their opinions, you get more outputs or inputs, should I say. And in a way, then you also learn that probably the idea that you came up with is not needed, but somebody tells you, or a lot of people tell you, that a similar uh, kind of idea could work, and then you remake your product, or rethink about your idea. So talking to people is actually a very crucial part of testing the market, because you also don't know who your market is. When you talk to a variety of people, then you know more, right?
Absolutely. And to give a little bit more details to it, when I talk to many other entrepreneurs and founders, and listening to their idea, many people like to build two-sided two-sided market platform ideas, meaning they want to build the next Uber, Airbnb, and stuff like that. And this is really difficult and really capital intensive, because you have two markets in Airbnb and Uber. You need to have drivers or people who are willing to rent their flat. And then on the other hand, you need also to have customers which are willing to do that. And this is way more difficult to implement than a simple idea. But many people say, hey, I want to be the next Uber, I want to be the next Airbnb, I want to be next Facebook. And this is probably not gonna work. Even if you have people which are saying this is a good idea, but there are also challenges besides that, so which you need to focus on.
So I'll just continue now. Yeah. So you talk about the importance of talking to people in testing the market and everything. So after the testing of the market is done, and now you're sure that this is a product that people are willing to buy, then what is the next step?
The next step is to implement it with a customer which is working together with you, meaning a person or a company which is saying, hey, I want to implement that, this is helping me in my organization, and I'm willing to test it, because you need somebody which is also saying and giving you feedback, okay, this is not working, I like to have it this way, meaning you need to have pilot customers which are willing to build the project with you. And for them, they need to have a huge pain, basically, because when they don't have a pain, when everything is working fine, why should they spend time on you to develop a new product?
Yeah. So how do you get these, pilot customers or people who would be willing to uh, give ideas or contribute to your uh, project?
So there is no easy solution, meaning you need to go and ask them, meaning you go to this company and say, hey, I have a service. Is this something which is helping you? Yes, great. Let's do it together. No, why not? And you're getting feedback, and it's okay. Why people are not want to have it? So there is no way going out on the street, basically asking them and.
Okay. Yeah, I get it. So at what point does patenting your idea come in? Uh,
So in my in my case, I think I did it definitely the one time, but I think I was also deluded, because when you see a lot of series like Shark Tank, or for example,
yeah.
where the big investors saying, "Do you have a patent? Do you have protected somewhere?" This gets the idea of saying something. Yes, this is something you need to have, otherwise they won't take you seriously.
Okay.
And I think in my case, this was not the right time. I think the right time is when you have something which is working, and you have the money to doing it. Meaning when you have solving a problem, it is working as a customer. But here's the problem: when you have already implemented something and you have showed it to somebody else, then you're not allowed to patent it anymore. So
Oh,
there's this huge chicken and egg problem. Meaning when you do it too early, it costs a lot of money, and the money could be wasted. When you do
yeah.
it too late, then you may reveal too much of the technology that you can't patent it anymore. So
Yeah.
actually, in my case, I think it was a good idea to patent it, because it proves that it's innovative new technology, but everything else not really important. Like I discussed it before, that I wouldn't be able to fight it because I don't have the money when a big company say, hey, great idea, great concept, they will copy it. So
Yeah. So there is actually no standard step in this process of building a startup when you should be filing a patent. It's actually quite tricky because you could be too early or too late in filing a startup
So what I
patent.
see, for example, in university, like the RWTH, they basically also filing a lot of patents.
Yeah.
But then it's so they basically creating a company out of the university, meaning that they say, hey, we give this patent to this group, and they can build a product around that. And so later on, there's no risk for the founders because they don't need to spend hundred thousands of euros and finding a patent. But the university will get a lot of money when the company is successful from that. So it's basically a win-win situation in this case.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite interesting to know. I mean, the different ways and different times one should be filing the patent and
Mhm.
other things. So, also after you have after you have tested your market and then you have even filed your patent. So I mean I think you are at this stage right now when you have already filed your patent, and so once you receive your patent confirmation, do you begin your manufacturing thing immediately, or do you take some time to analyze some of the things? How do you go about after this?
I think it really depends on the project, what you need to do there. There's no blueprint which is working in all cases. It's really depending on what you want to do and how you want to do it. And yeah, so there's no really one size fits all solution. So it really depends what you want to do and how you want to do it. For example, when you go in the medical sector, meaning a friend of mine which basically developed a medical product for that. And when you want to go to hospitals and they want to use it, you need to have a certification, meaning you can't go to them and say, hey, here, do you want to test my product? They will
Yeah.
say, we would love to, but we are not allowed to do it because for that you need certifications. And medical certifications take a long time and it's really expensive to do to create to get the certifications. And so that's what I mean with there's no solution
Yeah.
for there's no blueprint or one size fits all solution. So it really depends where in which sector you are in, what are you want to do, and how you want to do it.
Yeah. So
And for example, when I take and go back to the two-sided markets, for that you need investors. There's no way that you're building a social network or something like that without having a lot of money.
okay, okay. Yeah, I can see that there is no standard way, and it depends on the industry you are targeting, and there are lots of other unpredictabilities that one cannot, judge beforehand. So, my question to you now is, what do you find the most interesting about entrepreneurship, and why did you decide to pursue entrepreneurship, or did you not care about actually being an entrepreneur? You were just trying to realize this idea, and in a way you were pursuing entrepreneurship.
So for me, I worked in the military, and there is probably not a sector which is more hierarchy driven, meaning you have a pyramid with saying on the top, this is the way to
Oh.
go, and everybody needs to follow. And what I noticed during my time in the military, that I love to follow my own ideas. I love to work on things where I think there's a good value and also where I can learn something. For me, it's really important to learn something and become
Hmm.
better in different subjects. And so this is something, this freedom you only have in when you're doing something in entrepreneurship, because then you can decide on your own how you want to do it and what's the right way to do it. But it comes with big disadvantages. Meaning, You have the complete risk. When it's going wrong, then you are the one to blame. There's nobody else. There's no boss to say, hey, my boss messed it up. So
Yeah.
I don't have anything to do. It was my boss because he said that. No, it's when it's going wrong, it's your mistake. So meaning
Definitely.
you should be able to have the stomach that people can say you are a loser because it didn't work. That's okay. You need to be able to handle that. Number two is it costs a lot of time and a lot of money. You will work way more than you working in a normal 9 to 5 job because you have so many things you need to learn and you need to focus on. So there's books like the 4 hour work week. I
Yeah.
think it's not really possible. I think that somebody who is working 12 hours a day on a project compared to somebody who is working 4 hours on a project, the one with 12 hours will always win because he or she spends more time on it. Of course, you can say, hey, the guy with a 4 hour work week, he will work smarter. But everybody tries to be smart. If you don't try to go in a smart, innovative, new direction, you will lose. Nobody can, for example, build a new search engine like Google just because hey, I like to do that. It will not work. You need something new, innovative. You need a new strategy, and otherwise, there's no way for you that you can build such a product. And so, meaning both need to work smart. And I think when both are working smart, then the one which puts more hours in
Yeah.
have a higher chance to succeed. And this is disadvantage. Many people want to have spend time with friends, family, and so on. And for them, maybe it's not the correct approach. I mean, I can absolutely relate to that. When you have a kid, for example, or we have multiple kids, then it's really hard to work doing late in the evening because you also want to spend time with your kid.
Yeah.
Or when you have basically a home which costs a lot of money, and you said, I need to have a minimum income of, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 euros in order to pay everything, then it's also very hard to build up a startup which has no revenue at all. So um, there are big disadvantages. So it's not the perfect, shiny way, and everybody who goes in that direction needs to know that with a high probability of over 90%, you will lose, meaning you don't make any money out of it, and you probably will do something else in a few years. And if you are not willing to say that's okay, that's something I absolutely can go through with, then you shouldn't do it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really in-depth analysis of what goes around, someone who is trying to build a startup or who wants to be an entrepreneur, because from the outside it looks really cool. They're building something, they're building a company, and it really seems so inspiring. And part of that also comes from this idea of being your own boss, right? This is like
Absolutely.
every youngster wants to follow this kind of a strategy, but then you talk about the sacrifice that comes with it, that you have to be willing to give in more hours than you would normally give in a regular job. So what is your reason for choosing to be an entrepreneur despite all these challenges? Is it the freedom and independence and the ability to realize your own ideas? What is it for you? What is the reason for you?
So for me, it's basically I see myself as a very happy person, meaning I'm very satisfied with my life. It's for me, it's not that I say, hey, when I go to work and then oh shit, I have to do that again. No, every morning I get up, I'm excited and say, hey, today I will work on that. I will learn something new. This is something which I really like, and I also
Mm.
like the negative part of it. For me, it's
Oh.
sometimes when I work on the project and I work for 3, 4 days at it and it's not working, and it's really frustrating. You try it, you try a different way, and you try it another way, and nothing seems to work. But when you be consistent and doing over and over again, there will be a time and say, now it's working, and then you're getting enjoyment, which is um, basically the benefit for the frustrating and negative part you had doing that. And I really like that. But it's really coming from my personality. So somebody else who said, okay, I need to go 3, 4 days and really be angry and nothing is working. They say that's not something for me. I want to focus on things I like to do, and that's perfectly okay. But for me personally, I really like that, and I also really like that to basically attack it like a pit bull, so biting at the problem and don't go away from it and say, hey, I don't have time for anything else. Just focus on that. No Netflix, no nothing. Meeting with friends. So just focusing on that, and that's something I really like, and it's something that gives me joy, and that's why I want to pursue in that direction. When something like I go out of bed and I need to do something which I don't really like, that would not be the right way for me.
Yeah, so even though it's quite challenging and it can be frustrating a lot of times when you are stuck in a problem, but then you said that you enjoy this phase as well, because you know that if you keep on, if you have patience and you keep persisting with the problem, you keep on trying it, trying different ways to approach that problem, ultimately you will be able to solve it, and that you are actually targeting that state of fulfillment after you have solved the problem. So that's your inspiration, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So interesting, because for such a hard challenge, you have to even enjoy the negative and frustrating phases of it. Otherwise, you would not want to do this. And of course, it comes with so much sacrifice. But then the fulfillment that comes after this sacrifice is something that, I mean, probably you can relate better, and that's what inspires you to pursue it.
Absolutely, but like I said before, everybody is different, so everybody needs to
Yeah.
find the right way for them in order to find out what people really like.
Yeah, so it's definitely a personal choice. Maybe it's important for someone to take care of their kids and family, and it isn't worth it to spend so much time and energy on a project. So it certainly is an individual choice.
Yeah.
Right. So enough talking about entrepreneurship. Now I think I'll move on to another interesting aspect of Werner, which is, Werner as a writer. So you have written this book called Job uh, Disruption, which talks about, robots and AI and digitalization taking people's jobs away. And you have written this book in a really interesting way. You have given references to Game of Thrones and Apocalypse, and you have kind of made it very interesting, as you do in your speeches. So tell us about your book, Job Disruption.
So my thesis of job disruption is not that a computer will take all jobs away.
Yeah.
So my main take away from the book is that many jobs will go away, but the essence out of it is that you have only very few winners and most of the people will lose. And this is different from the past. But you see it today already when you take a look at the US stock market, that, for example, Apple, Google, Facebook, and so on are worth more than the complete German stock market combined.
Yeah.
And this is something which is unique, because in the past there were people which had a lot of employees, and they basically build up wealth. But this is now different. Facebook has less than 50,000 employees, but has billions of customers. And this is something which was never seen before, and you will see it now in every sector. You see it now in a few certain areas, like in the social media or in the tech market in general, but you will see it over and over again also in other areas. And that's basically what my book is describing, how technology is changing sectors, and will the basically the what is the end result? What is what will happen when this happens to the people, to the society, to the different job sectors? So will somebody who is basically be a truck driver today, how likely is it that he will have a different job in 10, 15, 20 years?
Okay, so so essentially the whole system would be, fundamentally changed in a way. So what does the future look like? I mean, if you have to give a description to someone who is not aware of this job disruption idea, what does the future look like in a very general and layman uh, form of way?
So when you ask me personally, I would say we will have a good future. I think we will have more improvements. People will die less about medical issues. So you have more possibilities to do what you want to do. But on the other hand, when you are a person, which is, for example, truck driver,
Yeah,
or somebody who is working as a cashier in a supermarket, which are now the majority of the jobs, meaning that this is where many people are working in the sectors. But when this will go away, for example, like Amazon Go Store, which is completely without people, cashiers, and when you have self-driving trucks, then this jobs will go away. They will not move completely, but they will reduce substantially. And that means that people need to focus on new areas, meaning they need to find new talents where they are good at it. And for many people, this can be a really tough challenge, because when a lot of people basically try to go in different areas, but there are other people who are better, and it's really frustrating for them. So what you see, for example, in America, that people attacking the self-driving cars because they are afraid that they will take over their jobs, and because when who are, am I when I'm not a truck driver or a taxi driver anymore? Um, how
yeah,
should
yeah.
I get income for my family? What am I as a person when somebody else or something else can do it better?
Okay. Yeah. So also, do you think something like the universal basic income uh, plays a role in the future? Because, for example, a taxi driver maybe loses his job and then he doesn't have a means to sustain his family. I mean, that's what people who are not deep into these topics, they probably fear, right, that these technologies will replace them, and they'll lose their jobs. And but then there are concepts like universal basic income, which uh, even the presidential candidates of US, like Andrew Yang, talk about very openly. So, what do you think about the possibility of universal basic income, and do you think it's a, a feasible strategy, or do you think this is going to do more harm than good? Yeah.
So I think the universal basic income is a problem solving machine which is okay for some aspects, so people get safety, but there's another huge aspect which is not solved by this problem. What you see in America, for example, or what you see it all over the world, basically, when people retire, then people getting more depressed, people getting Alzheimer and other diseases earlier when they retire earlier, meaning there's a correlation between early retirement and early death.
Oh,
And this is something which has a huge impact. When you put money on people and say, hey, don't worry, don't work on it, you don't need to work, here you have your money, and that's basically it, and then people will not be safe,
yeah.
basically. What you see in America, for example, is that the life expectancy is the first time less for children than for their parents, and this is something unique. Normally, it was always the case: medicine improvement, and people will live longer. But today, many people commit suicide, have addiction to drugs and alcohol, and this relates that people are basically dying sooner. And this is a huge problem when you just put money and give money to the people. It doesn't help them, because for many people, when they're doing a job, that's something who they are. They identify themselves as, hey, that's something I'm good at. That's something
Yeah.
where I'm useful, where people need me. And if you take that away from the people, that's really, really bad. And there is no easy solution to that. There's no, like, I will give them money and that will help them. So I think for the people themselves, everybody needs to basically know that something like this will happen in the next years, that there will be fundamental change, and I need to find a new role. I need to find something which gives me meaning in life. And if you
Yeah.
don't do that, then the chance that you are getting depressed and have a really bad time, it's really high. So that's basically my take on universal basic income. I think it's something which helps them and gives them security, but there's another huge problem which also needs to be faced.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, that's a really interesting way of thinking about it, because in a way, when people think about work, then most of the people would think about money, right? The money that they're getting, and if you satisfy their monetary need by giving everyone a universal basic income, then ideally everything should be okay. But then there comes another aspect of it, which is uh, the meaning that people derive from work. So work gives meaning to people's lives in a very important way as well. And when you say that you don't need to work, then you also take away the meaning as well. And also in countries, in a lot of countries, also in Germany, people who are jobless, they are given a set of income, right?
Yes.
A basic income, a very, it's a mini version of universal basic income, if I can put it that way. And so what do you think has been the impact of this kind of a thing? There must also be people who are misusing it, and taking drugs and going in a wrong path, and because they now don't have a meaning in their life. So what take do you have about the money that's given to jobless people?
So when you ask the people, the majority of them are saying they want to work, they want to have a job. To sitting at home watching television all day, it's maybe
Yeah.
good in the first few days or weeks, but then there will be a point where they say, I don't know what I'm doing. I want to have a job,
Yeah.
and this is difficult. And also, what you also see, there was basically um, kind of election if you want to have universal basic income in Switzerland, where people could decide, do we want to have it or do we not want to have it? And many people vote against them. And that's also something what you see here, that people who have a job are looking down at people who don't have a job and say, hey, this is a person which is too lazy to work,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And this is also a huge impact, that people are socially isolated, meaning that when you don't have a job, you are worth less than somebody else. And I think that's what I mean with that. People need fundamental change their perspective on work. When many jobs which basically not existing anymore in the future, and you saying, hey, this person has no worth, that's really bad for society. But many people are thinking about something like that people are lazy, and that people are basically that says that it's their own responsibility that they don't have a job. And I don't think this will be true in the future. I think that many jobs will be gone, and it will be very hard for a lot of people. And I think it will be harder for them when they have basically a lot of fulfillment from their personal life coming out of their job. And I think people need to adapt, maybe go to social meetings, basically doing something else, having clubs like, for example, Toastmasters, where you basically learn other things, and you need to find new meaning in life when your job is going away. And the reason why I wrote the book is that when I talk to people, many saying, okay, I can see that robots are taking over in production and stuff like that, but I'm a graphical designer. This is creative work. A robot will never, ever able to do that. And what I wanted to basically do is creating a whole summary of all jobs which are affected. So I want to give into details why a web designer is equally affected as somebody which is driving a truck or working in a bank. And because there's not only robots and artificial intelligence, there are more to it, but it's not easy to see from the outside. And I wanted to make that easy readable, and that people were saying, this is something which will never happen to me, see why it can also happen to them. And I'm not a big fan of saying, okay, in 30 years, so many percent of the people won't have a job anymore. So what I basically just did is say, I showed possibilities based on current technology, how this technology can have an impact on their job market. When this technology, which is used only in a small fraction, when this is used globally, what impacts could that have on this job? And so I looked at many different jobs and basically said, okay, this is the technology, state of the art of the technology, and this is how the impact could go to.
Okay. Yeah. So, what do you think are the sectors that are going to be majorly affected by this, uh, this kind of job disruption? So, what are the major sectors? Of course, you have talked about the sectors that are affected, that in which people's jobs would be replaced in more detail in your book. But I mean, giving a rough outline, what are the major sectors? You also talked about how a web designer is equally prone to losing his job as a production person, for example.
So I think when you look at the past, then in the beginning of the 19th century, most people worked in agriculture, meaning they were farmers and basically produced food, something to eat. And there was also discussion and they say, hey, when we have now big industries and everybody can basically don't need to be a farmer anymore, the people will become unemployed. And the same when the first ATM machines came on the market, then there were huge covers and say, hey, the robots are taking over the world and basically so we will all are out of work. And so it's very easy to say, hey, this didn't happen in the past, so it won't happen in the future.
Yeah.
And I think there are fundamental differences right now because, first of all, we are all connected to networks, and machines are becoming way smarter in regards of artificial intelligence. And when you normally work in a job, like in an office where you basically handling numbers and stuff like that, there is no way that a machine can't do that in a few years. So basically, people who are sitting in front of a computer and doing office work is hugely affected when machines become more intelligent and software become more intelligent. And you have also the possibility and that you get in a lot of data insights from a lot of data which is generated. For example, Amazon is monitoring every mouse interaction. When you click on a product, how long you are watching the section, when you're scrolling down, every movement will be recorded, and this data can be used to become a better insight of the person, what the person wants to have, probably better than a human. And so this is a sector where many people are working in insurance, for example, just putting on data, collecting data, and stuff like that. And everything is on danger that a machine can take over, because you see it in the small certain areas where you have basically pilots which are testing it, and you see this pilot projects are successful. And when this will be rolled out over complete Europe or the USA, this will be affected many people. And this is a huge difference between the past and now, is that every sector is basically on danger. There is only a very few rare exceptions, like when you going to a hairdresser which is cutting your hair. This person is very hard that a robot takes that over and cuts your hair. But this is only the exception. Most of the time, you will always find in some way how a machine or software could do this task. And so I won't go with probabilities and say, hey, this sector is the most risk, because there's a lot of more to it, like regulations. When you have, for example, here in Germany, you don't really use Uber like it is done in the United States because of regulation. And regulations are a big part of it, because when you have regulation which say you are not allowed to do this and this and that, then it slows down innovation and technology.
Okay, yeah. So a lot of sectors, a vast majority of the sectors are going to be, going to suffer from this impact. And interesting that you also bring about bring out the word artificial intelligence and machines taking the jobs of people. Now, artificial intelligence is a term that is thrown around very casually, and most people don't really understand what it means. People also have negative connotations of the word of this term from movies and all those things. How would you define artificial intelligence?
So when you say that many people think about movies like Terminator or something like that, then people always estimate that artificial intelligence has kind of a conscience or an objective or something thinking on its own. And that's not what we have right now at the moment. We have in the broad majority of the cases something which is called narrow artificial intelligence, meaning you have something which is better than a human in many cases, but only in a very, very, very small subject. Um,
Yeah.
it can be, for example, finding out which background color something like that is, or how many people are on a picture in a very fast way compared to a human, or finding out is there cancer cells on an image. This is something artificial intelligence today can better than a human, but this artificial intelligence is not thinking like a human. Say, hey, this could be that. No, it's just statistical, mathematical methods which are coming to a probability, and this probability is basically displayed.
So essentially, when people talk about artificial intelligence and the implemented methods, it's a very it's applicable to a very specific kind of a problem and not replacing a general set of capabilities of a human. And uh, also it's not as the movies depict, right? It's the what the movies depict is pointing to artificial general intelligence, which is probably not feasible at this point. At what point do you think we'll achieve such a level of intelligence? Or if you have any estimate of the idea, will it be in the next 30 years or 20 years or 100 years? When do you think such an artificial intelligence system could be there that people actually fear about? I mean, it's a thing that's really hard to estimate, but what's your rough idea about it?
So to be a little bit more specific about the term artificial general intelligence, it's basically artificial intelligence which is as intelligent as a human being. So you
Yeah,
can giving all kind of tasks, and it will be as good as a human in this regard. And when you basically ask the brightest people in the subject, then they differ a lot from for the next 20 years to 90 years. So that's basically the span that people which basically developing and would say they are the top of the top of this class, say this is basically the time frame. So it could be anything in this direction, but it could be also roughly completely wrong. For example, when you take a look at the game Go, many scientists and many people in the field of artificial intelligence would have said it would take another 10 years unless a machine is able to beat the best human player in Go. And this was done in 2016, so 3 years ago. So time can move very, very fast, but it can also take a lot longer. So it's
yeah,
really hard to pinpoint it down. And it really depends on multiple things. Number one, how much data do we have? And number two, how much is our computing power? And these are the two factors which are really, really important in order to make the right steps into that direction.
yeah. And these two parameters that you talk about, data and computing power, is also these two are the driving factors which have led to major advancements in narrow artificial intelligence in the past as well. So also the narrow artificial intelligence, or the artificial intelligence term that is used widely, is essentially just a statistical method, right? So it uses techniques like machine learning and other approaches. So how is conventional computer science problem different from a machine learning problem? Like, what is the uh, fundamental difference between how a narrow artificial intelligence system would be solving a problem and how you as a human would be programming to solve a problem? What's the basic difference?
We can do that easily on a task. For example, you see pictures of pets. and you want now to write a program which identify, is this object you see now a cat or not. And then a human way to do it is looking for specifics like the mouse, how a cat is looking, and for example the ears that they are shaped in a specific way, and you're looking for this specific pattern,
Features.
meaning so
Features, you mean?
features, yeah, exactly. So you're looking for this features, and you try to write a program which is looking for this feature and say, hey, maybe they are when this characters are met, then it could be a cat. But sometimes only one ear is displayed, or you see it from a different angle, and then it's really hard to pinpoint it down software-wise, because you need for every exception, you need to write something else. And that was the reason why the software in recognizing objects was really, really bad. 2012, so the fail rate was above 25%. So it was really, really high. So the best algorithm wasn't able to detect objects in a good way. And this changed with deep learning, because deep learning is a completely different approach. So there's no programmer would say, hey, this tool could be implemented. What you're doing in deep learning is basically you giving an algorithm hundred thousands of images of a cat, and this algorithm basically tries to find out the characteristics of the cat themselves. So you don't teach them, you say, Ivan, this is a cat, this is not, this is a cat. And so you try to give as many examples as possible, and then the algorithm is trying to create something own, and this what is created can use then to basically classify images. And this is then called a narrow artificial intelligence, because it's not programmed, it's basically created. It's also not really intelligent, because we are not know how our human brain works. So it's just a simple way of trying to imitate how the human way is working, but we don't know how it's working. So we say we have neurons in our brain, so we just put them together and try to basically create something from that. And this the science behind that is started in the 60s, so it's very old science. So these are not new concepts, but now we have enough data, because everybody has a smartphone camera and can make pictures, and we have enough computer power to build these neural networks, which are basically used in order to classify images. And in 2012, deep learning was introduced basically as a method to do that, and it dropped down to 16%, meaning that the failure of accuracy dropped down from above 25% to 16%. And from 2012 until now, it dropped more and more down, and the human error rate is around 5%. And now the algorithms are, I don't know exactly the numbers for 2020, I think around about 2% fail rate. And it's way better than a human in detecting objects. But it also makes really, really big mistakes a human never would do, because it's not comparable with the human intelligence. It's only based on a lot of data and more computing power.
Yeah, so the fundamental difference between these two kinds of problems, these two kinds of approaches for a cat and dog classification problem, for example, is that for the conventional programming approach, you really have to define lots of features that, define that this is a cat. But
Yes.
for a machine learning problem, we just kind of try to simulate our own neuronal network, and it works because it works in our heads. So we try to imitate it, and then it finds these features, these patterns itself. But how it works, nobody knows about that. And interesting that you also mention about the huge amount of data set that is needed to train such a model so that it can, uh, predict whether it's a cat or dog at a very good accuracy that's now getting better than human accuracy even. So why do you think we need such a huge data set for a deep learning problem, whereas if you have to ask if you have to show a picture of a cat to a child, then you just have to give him one example or very few examples. So why do you think this difference is?
Mhm. So to that in artificial intelligence always need millions of examples is also not true in every aspect. There is something which is called one-shot learning, which is an artificial intelligence trained very minimum amount of data in order to get it. But a rough rule is if you have more data, then better it is. So this is something which is basically the rough rule. If you have 10 times more data, then the algorithm doesn't it's not as important as the data. So
Okay.
they're nice statistical examples where people had less data, but really tweaked on the algorithm and tried to improve it, compared to have a lot more data, and a lot more data won in these scenarios most of the time. And
Okay.
so because the human brain works completely different than artificial intelligence, it's not really comparable. So these systems are working different, and because they are different, they need other aspects. In this case, more data, and that's the reason why more data is needed. Also, our brain is way slower than a computer. We don't also need so much computing power, but computing power is also something which is really needed in simplified neural networks. And so because they are fundamentally different from the brain, they use also different different kinds of rules. And for this is you need more data and you need more computer power.
Okay, so the way our brains work is we have no clue how our brains work essentially, because the way we actually uh, identify cats and dogs, uh, we only know one aspect of it, that the neurons, they are striking together and creating connections. But how these neurons are finding the patterns, how these are actually detecting the features, we have no clue. And probably there is a huge aspect of how our brain works that needs to be studied, so that uh, in the future, if we have more understanding of the brain, we can create algorithms which work on lesser data set probably.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So talking about artificial intelligence also, you talked about the misconceptions of artificial intelligence, how it is, compared with movies like Terminator. Do you think there are also other misconceptions about artificial intelligence? Would you like to clear some of the misconceptions apart from this thing, if there are any?
I think it's the main one is that people are expecting that it's something which thinks like a human, but what's not really doing. So it's not thinking; it's just mathematics, which probably which basically rate the probability of certain aspect, and it's also nothing to be feared. I mean, Elon Musk say, hey, artificial intelligence will basically destroy us one time. It can be. Nobody knows how the future will look like, because when an artificial intelligence will become smarter than a human one day, it's very likely that it becomes way smarter in a very short period of time, and so that we cannot control it anymore. And that's basically the fear coming from that. But yeah, overall, when you don't compare it like to a human brain, more like a new intelligent computer program, it's probably better than intelligence.
Okay, yeah, that was, a pretty intense discussion about artificial intelligence and your book that we had. Now I'll just move on to talking more about your personal inspirations and what inspires you, and a bit more philosophical side of things. So, who is your role model, if you have any?
I don't really have role models like a person which is say, hey, this is the best in every aspect. I think there's always teachers or people who are doing something extremely well. For example, Barack Obama is extremely well in rhetorical things. He's very good in presenting subjects, and yeah, there are um, athletes who are really good in their field, and so it's. I wouldn't say that there's a role model person for me. It's basically that I admire people who are really good in their subjects, and try to learn something from them.
So learning something from, anyone you possibly can is basically the idea.
Absolutely. So there's somebody which basically never went to high school, never had a university degree, never a college, but can make a YouTube video which is helping you with your problem, and then he is or she is your teacher, and I think that's great.
Okay, and as part of your inspiration, what books do you think have had the most impact on your life?
I read a lot of books, and when I read books, it's different from reading programming books, because I like to read books from the beginning to the end. And so what I think for me was the best book in regarding changing my perspective. Meaning, I think a book is always good when I read something and I'm thinking about it and say, this could be true or this could be interesting. I think that was the book from Peter Thiel, Zero to One.
Okay.
So it's basically a book about how markets are changing, and it's about that when you want to succeed in the new digital age, then there are new characteristics, like for example Facebook and stuff like that. Why are they not competing? Why they don't have any competition? Because this book is basically describing why it's important to have basically the why it's important to winning the market and before you making profit, meaning that it's important that you conquer the complete market, and then you are thinking about how can I monetize it. But this is completely different from normal aspect that you need to make money. But Facebook, Google, Amazon, every of this company lost a lot of money in the early years, and now they are basically, there's no way that a German company can compete with a company like that. So
Yeah.
even Microsoft tries to build a search engine with Bing, had an own operating system, so it's easy for them to lure people in using that. but there's no chance that they can that they can compete against somebody like Google, because you see immediately that the search results are way better at Google as at Microsoft. But when you look down deeper, it's better because they're getting feedback from their customer. Meaning, when you're searching on Google and you're clicking on the first result and you're going back, clicking on the second result, then they know for you the second result was better. And this makes Google smarter. And because every search transaction you did and where you clicking on helps Google improve their product, meaning that the customer and the people who are using the product are improving the product. And this caused to an unfair advantage, which is in majority of the cases not able to compete against. So, like I said, Microsoft tried it and they failed. Google tried it with Google Plus against Microsoft Social Network. It doesn't work.
Yeah, so pretty interesting book, I would say. Has a lot of insights about, startups and how if someone who wants to try to build a new company, it would be impossible for him to compete against these big giants. Yeah, so my next question would be, what are the suggestions that you have for anyone who wants to live a, you know, creative life like you and who wants to pursue multiple passions, and what are your pieces of advice or suggestions for that person?
Don't believe everything, meaning there are many people who are saying that's the idea, that's the best way to achieve something, and probably it's not. So I think there are also many people who have good insights, but I think it's really important to take a look at it from your own perspective and trying to figure things out and to see if that really something which is working. Like I said before, with a 4-hour work week,
Yeah,
probably there are a few examples which were able to do it, but I think the majority of the people don't
yeah,
succeed with that. And we have bias in society that we like to take a close look on the winners, but forget the losers. And when you see a young college dropout named Mark Zuckerberg created new social networks from his home, and now he's worth billions, then this sounds really amazing. But the probability that you will do something like that close to zero. But
yeah,
because you hear the success stories all over the internet, it's really easy to become the leader and say, this is also something I will achieve.
yeah. So being more realistic in your analysis and not following any advice that you get from other people blindly, but actually trying to, uh, try things out on your own and actually testing the things before believing the other things blindly. Yeah, that's a really, important advice that I would also take into my personal life. So finally, I would just like to ask you, where can people download your book? Is it on Amazon already? Where can people buy your books, for
So
example?
my book can be bought in German on Amazon, and the English version I never released. I have an English version, like I sent to you. So if the people want to have the English version, just send me an email, and then I will
Okay.
send it to
Okay.
them.
And how can people reach to you? What's the best way to reach to you?
Over my website, Werner Ulbts. You can put it in the
Oh,
comments basically. So
oh, so you have a personal website, right?
So it's just a very basic website, nothing special, just for business context. So when people say, "Hey, I need to help in building a new business model," or "I want to create a new product, I want to implement digitalization in my company, I have no idea how to do that," basically for that.
Yeah, okay. I'll add these links in the description of the video so that everyone can access to these, and also the link to the book in German on Amazon so that people who want to read it in German can buy it online. So, thank you very much, Werner. It was a really enriching conversation with you. We got to learn more about how to build a startup, your way of thinking, uh, how you generate ideas, what you think about the future, how the jobs will be affected, and a lot of other interesting content which I think will be valuable to the people you are watching. So I'm also looking forward to having a conversation with you again in the future when you have even more interesting ideas, because you're constantly trying to play with new things all the time. So it would be really interesting.
Yeah, I would love to come again on your show.
Yeah. Then thank you very much. Now I'll stop the recording.